In 1945, after the Trinity test site bomb dropped, Robert Oppenheimer was quoted saying,
"We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed, few people cried, most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, 'Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.'"
In 1942, scientists from around the world gathered in Los Alamos, New Mexico to develop an atomic bomb to end World War II, codenamed the Manhattan Project. While it did end the war and opened up the frontier for nuclear weapons, it also caused mass destruction, causing hundreds of thousands of people to lose their lives or develop cancer from the radiation. It was 1940 and the world was at war, and Enrico Fermi and Albert Einstein had both left Europe after escaping the Nazis and the fascist governments of Italy and started living in the US. They both agreed that the US government needed to know about the consequences if the Axis powers were able to use atomic weapons in the future. Fermi went to Washington, D.C. to tell government officials, but most didn't care and just brushed him off. Einstein later wrote a letter to President Roosevelt trying to convince him to start working on and researching atomic weapons. The president didn't see the point in the project, but after some convincing, he decided to go ahead. And in 1941, the Manhattan Project was born. They set up research labs in Los Alamos, New Mexico, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and in Hanford, Washington. Leslie Groves took around 60,000 acres of farmland for the project in Oak Ridge. They gave the residents in the farming area 2 weeks to leave and to find a new home. All they were told was that the land was being used to help the U.S. in the war effort. Some of the residents had owned their land for hundreds of years. During that time, they built a uranium process plant that was needed to help develop the bomb. It was named Y-12 and cost $427 million to build. Developing an atomic bomb was completely new and had never been done before by American scientists. While they were still learning and doing research, they were also trying to design and test out the science. They also built another building to keep processing uranium named K-25. At the time, K-25 was the biggest building in the world. While they were researching, they discovered plutonium was better than uranium, so they decided to start using plutonium in the making of the bombs. The government owned 560 square miles of land in Hanford, Washington, which was decided to be the location to make the plutonium. They had 51,000 people working there, and they built 2 buildings named Canyons and also built nuclear reactors. Later, they also helped the US in the Cold War. But after the project was finished, Hanford was left with lots of radiation. From 1943 to 1991, there was 56 million gallons of radioactive waste stored in 77 tanks. Out of the 77, 68 were leaking. They also had 2,300 tons of nuclear fuel that would sometimes leak that was staying a few hundred feet away from the Columbia River, the largest river going into the Pacific Ocean. And there was 120 square miles of contaminated groundwater and 25 tons of plutonium that needed to be disposed of or under military protection at all times. Even though Oak Ridge played an important part in the Manhattan Project, the most important research area would be Los Alamos, New Mexico. The bombs were developed and put together there. They tested everything they needed and were researching how they could make uranium-based bombs. But when they found out about plutonium, they switched courses and built a bunch of new buildings to do more tests for their discovery. And in May 1945, they had officially found out how to build a bomb and decided to test it. They went to White Sands Missile Range near Alamogordo, New Mexico. They didn't tell the local residents that they were testing the bomb, and there were people living just 12 miles away from the test site. On July 16th at 5:29 a.m., the bomb nicknamed Gadget was dropped. As the 40,000-foot tall mushroom cloud came up, the scientists knew it was done. They had started a new age of nuclear weapons. After the bomb went off, the hairs of cows in San Antonio, a city which is 14 miles east of Trinity, turned white. All the laundry that was outside hanging to dry turned black and had to be rewashed. Children who were playing outside were covered in ash and saw a big cloud overhead of them. Plutonium has a lifespan of 24,000 years. The radioactive ash fell on everything, and the water people would drink, the clothes that they wore, the food, the animals, and of course the people themselves. In the following months, New Mexico had the highest infant death rate. The national rate was 38.3 deaths per thousand, but in New Mexico it was 100.8 deaths per thousand. People who witnessed the bomb going off said it was brighter and hotter than the sun, and they thought they were experiencing the end of the world. Lots of people who were living around Trinity started getting cancer. Thousands of people have died from the cancer from the test site bombs, but none of them have got compensation. Other atomic bomb tests have happened in Nevada, and downwinders from there have been getting compensation since 1990, and the New Mexico survivors haven't received anything. This is Bernice Gutierrez. She works for the TBDC, or the Tularosa Basin Downwinders Consortium. She was born in the city of Carrizozo, a city 35 miles east of Trinity, 9 days before the bomb was tested. She has had 41 people in her family have cancer or radiation exposure diseases, and 7 have died because of it. She's also had to get her thyroid removed to prevent getting cancer. The TBDC's goal is to get compensation for the downwinders in New Mexico. Twice every year, the Trinity site is open to visitors, and every year they go down and peacefully protest.
So as far as the peaceful protests that we conduct, we have them twice a year. Every time they open the Trinity site, we are there at the gate, at the Stallion Gate, with our signs and our educational materials, which we hand out to people that are passing by or people that stop to ask questions about it. I have not been in there, and I don't care to go in there. But people, professors from UNM, students from UNM have come out and told us that they have armed guards there protecting and making sure that people don't enter restricted areas. Why? They go and they listen to the spiel that they give, which never mentions the people that live nearby as close as 12 miles.
Every year, they help tell the story of the downwinders in their fight for compensation. Less than a month later, on August 6, 1945, the United States dropped the Little Boy, a uranium-based bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. It caused mass destruction and destroyed 4 square miles, and over 100,000 people died. People who were outside got scorched to death, while people inside the buildings were crushed by the pressure. When the doctors were called in from other cities, they had a hard time telling the difference between the people who were dead and the people who were just horribly injured. Radiation sickness caused horrible damage. Victims' hair would start to fall out, and they would start to physically rot while they were still alive and would die a painful death. People who survived the bombings would have scars or later develop cancer. It was the same story on August 9th in Nagasaki, a city 200 miles southwest of Hiroshima. The Fat Man, a plutonium-based bomb, did even more damage, destroying 60% of the city and killing around 74,000 people. On August 10th, U.S. planes flew over Japan and dropped pamphlets saying, "To the Japanese people, America asks that you take immediate heed to what we say on this leaflet. We are in possession of the most destructive explosive ever devised by man. A single one of our newly developed atomic bombs is equivalent to the explosive power of what 2,000 of our giant B-29s can carry on a single mission. We now ask that you petition the Emperor to end the war." On September 2nd, 1945, Japan surrendered and World War II was officially over. But the nuclear frontier was just starting. According to research done in 2021, there are 9 countries that have nuclear weapons. Russia has 6,255, the US has 5,550, China has 350, France has 290, the UK has 225, Pakistan has 165, India has 156, Israel has 90, and finally North Korea has 40 to 50 nuclear weapons. There are also 5 nations hosting US nuclear weapons. Turkey is hosting 50, Italy 40, Belgium 20, Germany 20, and the Netherlands 20. There are 13,080 nuclear weapons around the world, and over the next decade, nuclear weapons are expected to grow and keep growing. And with more nuclear weapons comes more nuclear waste. But at Los Alamos Laboratories, they are trying to do something about it. In Carlsbad, New Mexico, at 2,150 feet underground, lays a salt mine named WIP, where nuclear waste is being stored. They mix the waste with salt and put lots of pressure, and over time it encapsulates the radiation. But the waste is only materials that aid making the weapons, like gloves, gowns, some dirt, and tools. There is no real way to get rid of radiation waste. Every year, the salt mines grow 2 to 3 inches, and every 18 months, the salt mine floors are cut to make the mines walkable. Around the world, countries are also looking into waste burial, with Finland mining a site with granite, and France and Sweden mining a site in clay. Asukuhei Saki, an 86-year-old survivor from Nagasaki, says something about the war that makes perfect sense. We would not be where we are today if it weren't for the countless lives that were lost due to the bombing and the many survivors who have lived in pain and struggle since. Wars of today no longer yield winners and losers. We all become losers as our habitats become inhabitable. And Hisaki was right. Hundreds of thousands of people died to end World War II. The nuclear frontier was changed, and now bombs are everywhere around the world. Without the scientists who worked on the project, the world might be a different place. Even though there was lots of bad, some good still came from the Manhattan Project.